On Christmas Eve 2020, I released my first YouTube video. Since then, I've released 11 videos, every one of which I am proud of in some way. In those videos, I feel like I've done a really good job of putting forward what I value in wrestling. I try my best to keep my personality at the forefront, and hopefully these videos will help people see wrestling from a perspective they might not have considered in the past. In a fairly short amount of time, this has led me to 250 plus subscribers. I've made new friends through doing this, and I've been shouted out by the people who inspired me to start making videos to begin with. It's hard to articulate how ecstatic I am that people watch and enjoy my content. But my first video, the top 25 matches of 2020, don't at all uphold the standard of the rest of my work. It's not good. It's not in any way, shape or form good. My choice of music was awful. I'm pretty sure I've heard that song in fucking scam adverts. My editing was awful and I sound noticeably nervous despite the fact I'm not actually talking to anyone. But that's not my issue. Of course those things are bad. It was my first video. That's the first proper edit I ever put together. I dislike the actual content. My critical analysis skills leave a lot to be desired in that video. I wound up including matches, not so much because I felt they belonged there, but more because it felt weird for me not to put them there. That's not good. That's not at all good wrestling criticism. And ever since my channel started gaining the small amount of momentum it has now, I've been kind of annoyed that it's on there. It currently sits at around 1,000 views, and that's gonna be where it stays. I've unlisted the video. I don't want people to discover my channel through it because it's awful. It's genuinely bad. Thank you if you watched and enjoyed that video, but I can do better. I could have always done better. I've went back and watched my original shortlist for match of the year for 2020, about 80 something matches. I've went through, ranked them, and come up with a more honest 2020 video, but one I should have made 8 months ago. If you want to watch the original video, it will live on as an unlisted point of shame down in the description of this one. 2020 fucking sucked. Everything about 2020 sucked. I graduated university into an almost non-existent job market, I was unable to see loved ones all year, and my mental health was at an all-time low. The coronavirus exposed the worst in our social, political and economic systems, and every form of escapism was affected by the virus, and this was reflected in wrestling. That being said, I weirdly enjoyed wrestling in 2020. Getting this out of the way, it was objectively worse than years past. But promotions and wrestlers had to adapt, which made for several interesting matches you wouldn't have seen in other years. Watching the wrestling world adapt to this new environment that COVID made was objectively interesting. Like, a lot of it sucked, but I didn't have to watch 4 Okada vs Sonata matches, so you know what? It's better than 2019. In America, a lot of promotions try to compensate for the lack of an audience with cinematic wrestling, to mixed results. The likes of Stadium Stampede and the Boneyard match were fun little art pieces that took advantage of the highly edited setting to make something very of its time. And then there's Gargano vs Ciampa, and did anyone actually like that? Like, if you like that, please keep it to yourself. It's not something to be proud of. In Japan, they try to keep wrestling going as normal for the most part, with either empty arenas or crowds that can't chant. There was just a lot of clapping, and it made for a weird soundtrack to a lot of Japanese wrestling matches throughout the year. And in Britain, it turns out all the wrestlers are cunts. That was a nice revelation. Our scene is full of abusers. Fuck, man. In 2020, I started to drift away from New Japan, which for years was my main source of wrestling. I'm not going to go into my issues with the company here. I've made a whole video about my issues with New Japan, so just go watch that. I would also recommend Forrest Over's video, New Japan Isn't Good Anymore. Just know that New Japan isn't in contention this year, like at all. It fucking sucked. For the most part, after graduating university, I was unemployed. The job market during a pandemic isn't exactly booming, so I had a lot of time to experiment with new promotions. Pro Wrestling Noah's main event scene was second to none all year. Both the heavyweight and national titles were on another level. The tag belts were also fun, although for the most part inessential in my opinion. And the juniors were a bit of a mess. You needed a Pepe Sylvia conspiracy board to understand what was going on. After an extended hiatus, Ring of Honor came back with a bang with their pure title tournament, which led into a very solid pay-per-view in Final Battle. Everything was logically booked, the in-ring action was fun, and their roster is surprisingly deep. They'd be in serious contention for promotion of the year if they had ran a full year, which they didn't. Both AEW and DDT are promotions I would probably consider if I had watched them more, as for the most part with both of them I only dipped in for big shows. As it stands, I didn't watch enough of them to build a solid case for either one. BJW and Dragon Gate are two promotions I saw get discussed a lot for this position in other places, but I didn't watch either of them. Not out of malice, I just never made the time. This preamble is probably for nothing, because if you watch me, you probably know who I'm going to pick. Like, honestly, for me, there's only one choice. It's Stardom. You knew it was going to be Stardom. Stardom were really up against it before you even factor in COVID this year. At the start of the year, Kagetsu and Hazuki, the leaders of heel faction IWATANI, retired. Wonder of Stardom champion Arisa Hoshiki left the sport due to injury. And in May, we tragically lost Hana Kimura. The four women I just discussed were very important to both the upper mid-card and main event scenes of Stardom. COVID exacerbated these problems because they lost access to many of their Gaijin workers aside from B. Priestley. Weirdly, this isn't new territory for Stardom. They have at several points of their history lost a big chunk of their roster and kept going like nothing has happened. They remedied the loss of big stars by bringing in and immediately pushing Donna Del Mondo members Julia, SYURI and Maika. Within the year they'd elevated Utami Hayashishita and Tam Nakano to main event positions and established a new generation of super rookies in Saya Kamitani and Saya Ida. Starlight Kid and Azumi made the high-speed division feel must-watch, and established upper mid-carders and main eventers like Jungle Keona, Konami, MAYU Iwatani and Momo Watanabe helped to keep Stardom stable. Stardom kind of just functioned this year. Where other promotions tried to steer into the differences 2020 brought, Stardom kept going like nothing happened and somehow managed to make it work, powering forward when it would seem impossible to do so. Choices here are kind of sparse, and for me there is a clear winner, but let's go through some of the contenders for this category. Ring of Honor came back in a big way. Their first show of the Pure Tournament saw two noteworthy matches in Dalton Castle vs Jay Lethal and Wheeler Yuta vs Jonathan Gresham. It does almost feel like cheating including this. I mean, it's not hard to have two great matches on a two-match show. But Ring of Honor's first pay-per-view back in Final Battle was really good. It was a really solid show which saw a great Pure Rules match between Jonathan Gresham and Flip Gordon. WWE tried to address the lack of crowd this year with the Thunderdome. And the WWE did their best with the setting, with Clash of Champions, SummerSlam and Hell in a Cell all being very easy watches despite the uncanny valley nature of some of those early Thunderdome shows. AEW had some great shows. Revolution, Double or Nothing and Full Gear are all fun variety shows that are paced really well with a lot of fun matches. Revolution on average were the best of these. It had an incredible undercard that saw Pac take on Orange Cassidy, Sammy Guevara take on Darby Allin and that tag team title match. But unfortunately it's let down by a bad opening in Dustin Rhodes vs Jake Hager and a bad main event in Chris Jericho vs Jon Moxley. Noah and All Japan both had the same kind of shows where the main event was great 9 times out of 10, but the undercard could be a grab bag of quality. No show from either company stands out for serious contention in my books. DDT had a number of great shows. The Wrestle Peter Pan doubleheader was an incredibly fun 2 days of wrestling. Although Strong Hearts vs Natalis and the main event of Masato Tanaka vs Tetsuya Endo makes day 2 the better of these two shows. Ultimate Party was also really fun, but I kind of felt like the main events were a bit bloated. Despite its declining overall quality, New Japan put out some really good shows at the start of the year. Wrestle Kingdom was 2 very good days of wrestling, which unfortunately is marred by a subpar main event on night 1. The New Beginning tour saw a steady slew of bangers, and the undercard was good enough to ensure that shows like Dominion and Summer Strong Winjingu were solid despite a soulless and plodding main event. But look, okay, show of the year goes to the promotion of the year. It's Stardom. Stardom has the show of the year. They started flirting with bigger shows this year, running larger arenas in Osaka, Sendai and Yokohama. 2 of these shows were great, and they showcased Stardom's ambition for the future. But Stardom takes this award in a show rooted in its past. Stardom's 9th anniversary show has 9 matches on it, 8 of them being either very good or significant to a storyline of Stardom at the time. You have a really fun high-speed freeway between Azumi, Starlight Kid and Zoe Sky. You have Saki Kashima's first match in IWATANI, which kind of shows what IWATANI is going to be for the rest of the year. And on top of that, you have 3 great title matches, the last major singles match for Kagetsu, and the birth of Donna Del Mondo, who became one of the bigger parts of Stardom over the year. It's a show that has goals in mind and achieves them perfectly. No bloat, no filler, everything worth watching. And believe me, I'll be going into more detail about some of the matches on this card later in the video. It's Edge coming back at the Rumble. fucking obviously. Edge is a childhood favourite. He was in the first wrestling match I ever watched at WrestleMania 23. As someone who makes quite a lot of wrestling content, it can be easy to become clinical about wrestling. But not that night. His eyes. Oh my god, his eyes. If he'd have cried, I'd have cried. I'm saying that. I cried. So it wouldn't have mattered. Wrestling is unique as a form of fiction because it's not split into seasons or movies or books. It happens in real time. Unless you're watching Lucha Underground, a week for you is a week for the wrestler you're watching on the screen. So it wasn't a case of we hadn't seen Edge wrestle for 9 seasons. We hadn't seen him wrestle for 9 years. In that moment, I didn't care about who Edge would feud with. I did not care whether he'd be any good after 9 years out of the ring. I just cared that he was back, and it's the happiest I've been in wrestling all year. Hangman and Kenny Omega had a really good case to this. A ton of really good title matches on TV and a great match with the Young Bucks at Revolution. But oofed, that FTR match, that was rough. Nautilus did have a really good run with the KOD Tag Championships, which almost landed them here, but something kept them off. I'm not quite sure what, but they're not my tag team of the year. Like, it's easy to shine when your tag team division is fun, which DDT almost always is. But it's even harder to do so when your division is trash, which takes me on to the winners, the Dangerous Tackers. The year didn't get off to the best of starts for them after a baffling loss to Okada and Ospreay. Their pair of matches against the Golden Aces was just very good, especially the one at Dominion. It went on a bit long, but it was some of New Japan's best drama all year. On Road to Power Struggle, they somehow managed to make a 35-minute tag title match work against Yoshihashi and Hiroki Goto. And they had a halfway decent tag league, most notably against Finn Juice and the Chaos team of Tomohiro Ishii and Toru Yano. And again, they managed to do this in the IWGP Tag Team Championship scene, which normally is a barren wasteland not even worth discussing. Having such a good year while having so much against you is so impressive that I feel compelled to give them this award. They've just completely earned it more than anyone else in contention. Unlike tag team, for me, there's no shortage of contenders for this spot. A lot of wrestlers stepped up in 2020 to meet the challenging conditions of the COVID era. Minoru Suzuki and Shingo Takagi managed to break through the homogenous slog that was New Japan in 2021 to consistently put on some of the best matches of the year. A bulk of their case is during the summer with their fantastic trilogy against each other. In Shingo's case, he also had a very good Never run, which puts him ahead of Suzuki, mostly because of his matches with Show. Also a really good tag match at New Year Dash. But for Suzuki's part, he had a very good G1, probably better than Shingo's, and he had a really good match against Moxley at New Beginning. They managed to stand out in a company that's not been good this year, so that says a lot about their ability. Kento Miyahara had a great start of the year as he wrapped up his extended run with All Japan's Triple Crown. He fell off later in the year, which does cost him the honours, but he was the only man to have a good champion carnival, so that helped his case. Daniel Bryan really held down the fort in terms of average quality in WWE this year. During the summer, he had noteworthy matches with basically every mid-carder on SmackDown. It was insane. Jon Moxley found himself fully unleashed this year. After winning the AW Championship from Chris Jericho at Revolution, he went on to have the best title reign in America all year, putting on great matches, creating hot feuds, and making himself must-watch. And on top of this, not content with being the hottest thing on AEW programming, he went to GCW and New Japan for big matches against the likes of Lance Archer, Juice Robinson, Minoru Suzuki and Chris Dickinson, stole the shows there too, in the process making wrestling feel a little bit more connected. Okay, so it's time to announce my Wrestler of the Year, and it's a tie. Look, I'm sorry, it's a tie. I can't pick. It is impossible to choose between MAYU Iwatani and Goji Izaki. MAYU's run with World of Stardom Championship is an all-timer for the promotion. There's not a single bad match among any of the championship defenses she's had this year. Even beyond that, her involvement in great non-title matches against Tam Nakano, Takumi Iroha, Saki Kashima, and her participation in the tag team match of the year really helped to fill out her case quite nicely. She gave her all in every match she had, elevating anyone who steps into the ring with her. Whilst Goji Izaki is in this position because of his reign with the JHC Championship, this isn't completely down to the quality of the reign. Because in terms of pure quality, MAYU kicks his ass in every single way. But in Go, what you got was pure variety.
Every match of his was unique in tone and structure. You never knew what you were going to get going into a title defense. I've asked so many people for their rankings of the Go reign, and all of them have very different orders. Every match of this reign is somebody's favourite. His case is also backed up by a bunch of really good tag matches. Most notably beside Axe's partner Katsuhiko Nakajima and young ace Kaito Kiyomiya. He also had a solid N1 victory tournament, putting on good matches against Kiyomiya, Sakuraba and Mochizuki. Look, I can't decide between the two, so it's both. It's just both. Deal with it, I'm a coward. On to the top 30 matches of the year. SYURI is, without a doubt, Stardom's greatest acquisition this year. The Joshi veteran made a big splash despite not being given a sustained push before this match, where she cemented herself as a worthy main event player. For most of this match, MAYU tries to play SYURI at her own game, trying to match a hold for hold, strike for strike, which isn't a fight you're ever going to win with SYURI, who completely outclassed MAYU for most of the match, making you believe that this person who hadn't really been pushed in the main event scene before could beat MAYU on her first attempt. When MAYU started mounting her comeback, she did it by just throwing herself at SYURI, which SYURI reacts to by just kicking the life out of MAYU. MAYU displayed great fighting spirit in this match, managing to stay alive even when it seemed impossible. It was a great underdog ace performance that established a new main eventer in SYURI. I remember being a teenager watching these two feud in WWE and thinking, I'm pretty sure this isn't their full potential together. This match is their full potential together. The match starts hot, with Moxley hitting a tope to the outside and the two men brawling all over Daily's place. Throughout the whole match, the two are just laying into each other, taking nutty bumps to the outside, climaxing with a bump through the ramp. I didn't really feel, to me at least, that Brodie Lee had a hope in hell going into this match, but you completely forget this as the match goes on. Lee was made to feel like a threat here. Those knees from Moxley in the finishing stretch felt so desperate. Moxley walking away from choking the monster out felt like it cemented Moxley as a champion to be reckoned with. Both men gave as good as they got, neither man looked bad coming out of this. Crossovers between Marvelous and Stardom from 2020 was some of the most fun I had in wrestling all year. After defeating MAYU earlier in the year, Takumi Iroha felt like a Dark Souls boss that could swoop in and destroy people where they stood. This match was set up by Momo Watanabe, who brought her Queen's Quest stablemates of Utami Hayashishita and Azumi to fight Takumi Iroha's team of Meiho Suzuki and Rin Katakura. We started out here with the Queen's Quest team not taking anyone on the Marvelous team but Iroha seriously, but they would come to regret that attitude. For me, the standout here is Meiho Suzuki, who hit so many drop kicks that by the time she had stopped, I didn't know her life before she had started drop kicking. Got the win over high-speed champion Azumi, and their exchanges in this match made me incredibly excited for the high-speed title match later in the year. Anytime Takumi Iroha was in there, she felt like a beast. Her exchanges with Momo were electric, and every time she was taken down, it was like wounding an animal. It was ridiculous. I say all this to explain a simple fact. This match fucks. I prefer it to May versus Takumi too. Two mental Japanese shooters murder each other for the morbid enjoyment of a bloodthirsty European audience. Do I need to give you more reasons why you should take this out? From what I understand, Ishikawa and IKEDA have decades of backstory, and from personal experience, none of that is needed to enjoy any of this match. Simply, all they do is try and outdo each other. All they want is to prove that they are better than the other man. They would do this anywhere in the world, and it's the privilege of the audience in attendance that night to watch them. Nothing about this feels staged, controlled, or planned. Two old men tried to murder each other that night in Germany, and it ruled. Since bringing their rivalry to New Japan, HIROMU and Dragon Lee have not missed. This match could have easily fallen prey to the formula New Japan has attempted to force upon every single one of its title scenes. And this formula of long epics isn't something that particularly works well with the explosive junior heavyweight style that links HIROMU and Lee together. They were given 24 minutes to fill, the longest match of theirs to go to 1-4, and around 5 to 10 minutes longer than their ideal length. They worked around this with the bold creative decision of slapping each other very hard in the chest for about 5 minutes. After that, they just proceeded to have their normal match where they tried to kill each other. They essentially skipped the start of the match to avoid their style dragging down the stretch. It's very clever. And it's a good way to avoid a problem that New Japan forces on every single title scene. I can't stress enough how much I hate it. Creative ways around a problem deserve to be praised but often feel like compromises. Here it adds a new flavour to the rivalry and I didn't see it coming. So this is a rematch of their title match earlier in the year, which was fun but kind of bloated. Since then, Nakajima betrayed his partner Goji Ezaki to join KENOH's stable Kongo. And now Nakajima has to beat his new boss in order to fight the guy he betrayed earlier. Does that context make this tournament match feel more epic than it is? Good, because I like this match for a very simple reason. Two hot boys kick each other very hard. They trimmed a lot of unnecessary elements from their title match and mostly stick to kicks, and it was hype as fuck. They kicked very hard. I liked it. Stupid, sexy Nakajima. Tomohiro Ishii is a man I found myself losing fondness for as 2020 went on. His matches are very formulaic. If you're having a great match with Ishii, it's going to be an Ishii match. This isn't inherently a bad thing, just something that can grow long in the tooth after 5 years of fandom. A big problem is he's never really primed to win unless there's a tournament you know that he's going to be taking the L. But it's for G1, so there's every chance that Ishii can pull out the win here. Also, he's against Minoru Suzuki, who is so gleefully violent that there was absolutely no way that this match would feel like just another Ishii match. And that's how I describe this match, gleefully violent. They just hit each other very hard in the head and dropped each other very hard on their heads. Despite the fact that both men have fairly set in stone finishes, you couldn't really tell which move was going to end the match, which was glorious. This match simply picks you up by the throat and doesn't let go till it's finished. Perfect, love it. This just gets better every time I watch it. The story going in was GULAK claiming to know all of Daniel Bryan's weaknesses inside out. And that story was present throughout the whole match, with GULAK matching Bryan hold for hold throughout the match, catching him out on several occasions. GULAK catching Bryan with a pile driver as Bryan tries to get out of GULAK's leg was amazing. Chef's kiss. Chef's fucking kiss. Here, Drew GULAK genuinely comes off as someone who has studied Bryan and planned out a game plan to defeat one of the best wrestlers to ever live. But it takes more to beat someone than just studying their tapes. GULAK is a man who knows how to beat Bryan but doesn't quite have what it takes to do it. That's a lovely story. The fact that GULAK came so close despite the skill gap that exists in storyline shows how selfless Bryan is. He doesn't care where you are on the card. He'll elevate you to belong on his level. King shit. We don't deserve him. Masato Tanaka's reign as KOD champion was a pleasant surprise in the first half of the year. From the moment he won the belt from Hiroshima in January, his reign was a steady slew of bangers. But his match here against Mao is by far my favourite match of this run. I just love it. I've watched it 3 times and every time I've had a big dumb smile all across my face. Whether it's the fact that an old man is hitting apron Death Valley drivers and jumping from the top rope through a table on the outside, or Mao winning an elbow exchange by saying, "Look over there." He even jumped over the top rope and smashed a box over Tanaka's back. I love it. Why am I meant to not love this? Look, my enjoyment of this match isn't deep, and I won't sit here and pretend it's objectively better than any other match on this list, but this made me smile, which was a rarity in 2020. Critical qualities are nice, but emotion is what wrestling is built on. I adore this match. My favourite match of Jon Moxley's reign as AEW champion, and it's a match that surprised me a lot. It was on All Out, which was AEW's worst pay-per-view to date. It was a genuinely awful show, with even the match I was looking forward to, an Omega and Hangman vs FTR, being meh. The show would be a write-off if it wasn't for this match. MJF baited Moxley here, using Moxley's normal go-to of brawling on the outside to target his arm to set up the Salt of the Earth armbar. Moxley fought with fire. He feels like the biggest star in all of wrestling in every one of his big matches, and this was no exception. Moxley opened MJF up later in the match, and it helped MJF look a lot tougher than his normal heel antics allow him to. It's the kind of performance that establishes you as a big star. As the match progressed, MJF became less of a shit-eating heel who was outsmarting Moxley, and started meeting Moxley on his level. Going toe to toe with one of the best in the world does nothing but increase your credibility. If I had to compare this match to something, it's like Mick Foley's match with Randy Orton. MJF got to show he's more than just his heel tactics. In fact, it's his heel tactics that cost him the match. MJF is made from this match onwards. Great stuff. Did you know this match didn't even headline the SmackDown it was on? It was headlined by Braun Strowman and Heavy Machinery versus Ziggler, Miz and Morrison. Fucking nuts, I know. But yeah, this match rules. Of course it rules. You give two of the best wrestlers of the past 20 years an extended runtime and just let them do what they want, you'll get magic. It's a match of dueling limb psychology which both men sell extremely well. There's some incredible counters here, most notably Bryan catching one of AJ's Pele kicks into an ankle lock. Oh my god. Oh my god. It's paced extremely well. It's a long match, especially for TV, but they continually add layers to ensure that you stay compelled throughout the duration. This is one of those matches that are so good in a bubble that the stakes don't really matter. It's easily forgotten that this match is the tournament finals for the Intercontinental Championship. I do have one gripe about this match, and it's the fact that it's about 20 to 30 seconds too long. That sounds nitpicky, and believe you me, it absolutely is. But the match should have ended on the beautiful counter into the Styles Clash. It continues to amaze me how many ways AJ can get into that thing. But afterwards, he just rolls under and hits with a phenomenal forearm. Like, it's fine, but like, I was notably less invested for about 30 seconds. But other than that, I have no real issues. It's an excellent display by two legends of this century. I blew my load on this match in my initial list, giving it the full 5 stars and placing it in the top 5. I have clearly wavered from that rating, but that's not to take away from the quality of this match. Going in, it was unbelievably obvious that there wasn't going to be a definitive winner. Double champions like Keith Lee, Tetsuya Naito and Evil were so common that Noah would be dumb to think the tactic would work. Especially given that the National Championship wasn't even a year old at this stage. It was essentially an open secret that this would go to the time limit, but during your first viewing, you completely forgot that secret. Go and KENOH added so many elements as they went along that it's surprising it wasn't a mess. KENOH had won the national strap the week before via knockout, meaning when KENOH landed a kick in this match, it was a conceivable match ender. When anything can end a match, you're gripped for the whole runtime. It's something KENOH was great at throughout this last year, and he's up against the Wrestler of the Year in Goji Izaki. This definitely drags at points. It's almost an inevitability when a match is going this long. But they spread the good throughout the match. You don't have the normal problem of 20 minutes in the middle of nothing. It's an hour long, so I'm not saying you have to watch it, but also it's one of my favourite matches of the year, so if my opinion means something, maybe watch it. I don't know. I'm stupid, aren't I? Next! Wrestling, broadly speaking, has two main areas of storytelling. External factors, or the reason people are fighting and why they'd want to win this fight, or internal factors of how wrestlers interact with each other between the ropes. I couldn't give one iota of a fuck about the external factors of this match. It's for the Rev Pro title. Who gives a fuck about the Rev Pro title? No you don't, you're a filthy liar. But the match itself is infinitely interesting to watch because these two have such divergent paths to victory. Saber is a grappler. He wants to keep Ospreay within his range so he can wear him down and keep Ospreay from his game plan, which is to jump around like an idiot and hit bombs. And both men at various points of this match need to play the other's game. Ospreay needs to grapple to create the distance he needs to fly, and Saber needs to hit bombs to stop Ospreay's momentum. It just makes for a fantastic game of chess, which I adore. Ospreay felt like he had a brain in this match. He's never felt like that again in 2020 or 2021. Just this match. It's a miracle. Kento Miyahara is not known for his ability to sell. It's like asking a fish to run. His formula is fairly typical of ace figures who'll start off hot, get one down in the middle, and then have a big explosive finishing sequence. This formula for me often works very well in the moment, but completely falls apart upon a rewatch. Yuma managed to get around this by targeting the arm of Miyahara. Kento doesn't really use his arms for strikes, so it meant he could have an emotional core to this match without having to sacrifice his big explosive finish full of knee strikes. I love Miyahara, but the best part of his match was Yuma Aoyagi, who was vicious in the middle when targeting the arm. He had an end goal in mind, and I loved that. I love the fact that he found a hole in Miyahara's game and attempted to exploit it. It's a real shame that Yuma's heel run fizzled out, because this is a great proof of concept for it, but he's killing it as an underdog babyface, so who am I to complain? Minoru Suzuki put the modern main event scene of New Japan Pro Wrestling to shame in 2020. Chances are, if you had a match with him, it was your best match all year, and Kota Ibushi was no exception here. Ibushi is a man who spent his last year before becoming champion being fairly mid. His match with Okada should be put in a museum for matches that don't hold up on a rewatch. There's not a ton of noteworthy matches with him in 2020, and it's not like he wasn't put in the position to have noteworthy matches, he just didn't have them. He had one here though. This match was built around Suzuki goading Ibushi. It starts with the two men trying to out-grapple each other, then Suzuki goads Ibushi into brawling on the outside, which puts Ibushi behind, going into the standard New Japan main event ending. This is a match that feels like it earns its ending, and it's not just that, it's heightened by some amazing counterwork from Suzuki. For a tournament match, this is very well paced and very well structured. It injected story into what was, for me, a fairly lifeless G1. Suzuki is the fucking king. This match followed a solid 6-man championship match which saw the eruption team of Yukio Sakaguchi, Kazusada Higuchi and Saki Akai defeat the Disaster Box team of Kazuki Hirata, Naomi Yoshimura and Yuki Ueno. Immediately following that, Higuchi, Sakaguchi, Yoshimura and Ueno went at it for the KOD championship. And what I love is that they didn't reset, they sold the match that came before. This felt like a war from the beginning. There was a sense of escalation but doesn't require any context to enjoy. Ueno bumps like a madman and Eruption brutally and efficiently beats Nautilus into the ground. Nautilus felt like they had something to prove after their loss just minutes prior. Every time they were stopped in their tracks, it was honestly heartbreaking. This match is an amazing display of fighting spirit. It becomes obvious fairly soon after the match starts that Nautilus are not walking away with their KOD Tag Team Championships. But in the face of certain defeat, they fought with every ounce of their beings to hold on to the gold they've been defending throughout the year. It's wrestling at its finest, and it cemented my fandom of Dramatic Dream Team. That was pretentious. Why didn't I just say DDT? Christ's sake. On to the next one. It is a truth universally acknowledged that if WWE tries to emulate real combat sports, it's going to fucking suck. WWE have tried to emulate boxing and MMA before, to rather shocking results. It's not something they do well, and that's fine because it's not the brand of wrestling they try to make, is what I'd say they didn't keep trying to do it. This is an obvious continuation of that curiosity WWE has. The presence of a cage with no ropes is overtly trying to invoke MMA imagery, and the two men involved are former MMA fighter Matt Riddle and technical genius Timothy Thatcher, who were fairly subdued at the start of this match. Then Thatcher gets his teeth knocked out. Everything here flows like a stream. Even the high spots are integrated really well. Everything follows on naturally from the previous sequence, and it's so violent that you don't notice the lack of a crowd or the gaudy production values of 2020 NXT. I can't believe this wasn't on TakeOver. It fucked so hard. It's only like 11 minutes long. Go watch it. This was the biggest snub of my original 2020 list. There's no excuse for not having it on there, I just forgot to add it to the spreadsheet of my original list. I'm a fucking idiot because this is amazing. The dynamic here is clear from the start, even for people who don't watch Noah. I know this because that was me. This was only like my second Noah show I ever watched, but they make it so clear. Goji Izaki is the veteran trying to keep up with the young ace of Noah in Kaito Kiyomiya, who had held the belt since December 2018 and had defended it 6 times against veterans like Nakajima, KENOH and Segura. It's youth and creativity against experience and force, a classic formula in wrestling that's played to near perfection here. This match was basically 50-50. Both men were being sympathetic and brutal when they had to be. That being said, you couldn't help but root for Go here. It was cathartic when he finally got that win. It's not the best match of Go's run this year, but I would definitely say it's the easiest to enjoy. It goes a good length, it's very well paced, and it doesn't try to reinvent the wheel. Simple shit done well. Love it. The Elite are a collection of very talented wrestlers. Hangman Page is a gifted young wrestler who, along with the likes of MGF and Darby Allin, make up the basis for AEW's future main event scene. And Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks are three of the most notable workers of the 2010s who tend to live up to the hype attributed to them when they're not fully up their own ass. What we have here is a bold display of throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. The wear and tear on Matt Jackson's back, the fractured friendship between the four men leading to disagreements among the teams, and the teasing of Hangman's turn on Omega. Really good stuff. A lot of the deeper story elements don't work for me. It's a match that's harmed by the discourse around it. It's not a transcendent piece of storytelling that would change your life, and it's not the best tag match ever, or the best tag match of the year for that matter, but it's a fast-paced 30-minute epic that doesn't lose your attention. This match fucks. I've endeavoured to get away from the accidental staple I've created for myself of saying this match fucks and moving on, but in this case I can't really avoid it. This match just fucks. Like, dude, bro, it fucks. Walter is a force of nature. He's someone who does nothing but the basics of wrestling, but is so effective with his attacks that he makes even a chop one of the most beloved moves in his arsenal. The way he moves never feels staged or predetermined. He reacts to a situation so naturally that you believe it's an actual fight, even when it gets as ridiculous as this match does. Ilya Dragunov is hammy and over the top, and I love him. His crumple spots and screaming can be off-putting, and that's valid, but I enjoy the hamminess of the Crazy Russian. It's 25 minutes of hard strikes and head drops. It fucks. Tam Nakano has two prerequisites to guarantee a great match. The first of these is emotional investment. Tam thrives on it and builds her matches around emotional bomb fests. While it's not impossible for her to have a great match from a cold build, she performs well in the 5-star Cinderella tournament, a Tam match can live and die on the story. Which is good because the story here is amazing. Stardom legend Kagetsu is on her way out of the company and Tam wants to prove herself to her. They have history in IWATANI and Tam wants to prove to Kagetsu that she made the right move in leaving the faction for Stars. And if you didn't know this context, it's laid out wonderfully in the pre-match promos. The other prerequisite for Tam is that her matches kind of need to be short. Tam's ideal striking range is between 8 and 15 minutes. If you're bold enough to go 20 plus with Tam, you better be special. This is kind of seen in the Julia match that went 28 minutes. Oh my god, I'm still not over that. 28 minutes. And this match is short. It only just went 10 minutes and Kagetsu is very special. So this match ruled. It's a 10-minute emotional bomb fest where you feel every move in your soul. It felt epic despite its short length. This is what I want from Stardom. This is why I fell in love with the promotion. Two old men hit each other until one can't get up anymore. I genuinely don't think I need to justify my adoration for this match beyond that Battle Soldier on. What amazes me here is that neither men took a bump to the end. It was built around hard strikes, creating a war of attrition, and was carried by the charisma of both Suzuki and Nagata. The reason Suzuki is good here is obvious. The joyous glee he takes in inflicting punishment on Nagata oozes through the screen. And Nagata's old gunslinger energy as the former ace of New Japan means you can't help but root for him as the match goes on. It goes blow to blow in this all-out war. The current crop of New Japan main eventers should be ashamed of themselves. Despite their big narratives and lofty ambitions, they were outperformed by two men in their 50s. Nothing has topped this in New Japan's COVID era. It fucks. If there's one thing I can rarely describe MAYU Iwatani as, it's a smart wrestler. She's a great ace figure. She has the natural charisma that you need to be one. She hits hard. She has cool moves. She's great. But she's not the brightest tool in the box. So here, it took me as such a surprise when she started to subvert Stardom spots to gain advantages. Try saying that fucking 10 times fast. That took me like 5 takes to say. Anyway, for example, elbow exchanges aren't uncommon in big Stardom matches, and when Jungle reached out her arm to initiate one of these exchanges, MAYU grabbed it to put her into a triangle lock. That was so great and unexpected, but this match would have been great even without that stuff. Both MAYU and Jungle Keona are unbelievably charismatic. Jungle is one of the most sympathetic characters in all of Stardom. Despite spending most of this match on top, you can't help but root for her as she desperately tries to convert the title shot in her hometown to a win. Jungle's emotions ultimately got the best of her here, as an attempted tribute to Anna Kimura ultimately set off the chain of events that caused her to lose the match. This is a strong, emotional affair that hits all the right beats and showed a different side to MAYU. first watched this match at a very stressful point in my year. I was snowed under with uni work as I was nearing the end of my degree, and it was the day that the UK had announced the national lockdown. I was depressed and overwhelmed, and all I wanted at the end of that awful fucking day was some good wrestling, which this match gave me. Here, Kento was on the cusp of beating Kawada's record for the most defenses of the Triple Crown, and standing in his way was Suwama, a man Miyahara was looking past because he had already defeated him during this reign. Suwama, on the other hand, was laser focused. He won't let this little prick become the most successful champion of the history of the company he loves. This is a story that's played out in the entrances. Suwama's not playing up to the crowd, and Kento is being more cocky than usual. Because of this, the early shine that would normally go to Miyahara goes to Suwama, and Kento finds himself having to scratch and claw to get back to the point of being in control, which he often lost again by playing to the crowd. This was a very simple and effective narrative that helped to ground what was otherwise a fairly standard All Japan bombshell. Suwama's reign wasn't incredible, but the way it started certainly was. When Katsuhiko Nakajima turned on Goji Izaki, breaking up Axis to join Kongo, this match was the obvious fallout of the betrayal. Even as someone new to Noah, I could see how big a deal this breakup was. I appreciated Noah not jumping straight into a grudge match between the two. Nakajima had to earn a shot with the champion by winning the N1 Victory Tournament. Because of this, the feud added an emotional core to months of Noah shows. Going into it, this match had more hype than any other match in Go's reign. Nakajima was brutal here, targeting Go's arm, which Go sold really well, not being able to capitalize on his signature chops. Shiozaki was behind for most of the runtime. Him retaining was in doubt right up to the point where he got the pin. This match runs long at around 42 minutes, but it doesn't feel that long to me. The emotional core of this being two former best friends really elevates this match beyond what it is for me. Even rewatching it months after it happened, I still feel just as invested as the first time I watched it. That's hard to do. I'd say we're onto a winner with this one. There's an air of celebration about this match. It's Kagetsu's last proper match for Stardom, and she went out with a bang, teaming with one of the wrestlers of the year in MAYU. Both of them are having a lot of fun throughout this match, especially MAYU, who's relishing in doing Awadatai spots, even wearing somewhat matching gear with Kagetsu. This runs in contrast to Momo and Jungle. They don't want to fuck around because they have an opportunity to beat the World of Stardom champion and one of the biggest wrestlers of Stardom's history as she's retiring. Are two workers who can go overlooked, so this is a big opportunity for them to jump the queue for a title shot. This difference in dynamic makes for an excellent sense of escalation from playful to serious that Stardom can achieve so well when it's on. It's hard-hitting and desperate as it goes down the stretch, and Jungle getting the wound of a Jungle Buster is the cherry on top of the cake for me. I don't really expect it to be anyone else's tag match of the year, but the mixture of all these elements just made it for me. MAYU getting so brutally put down by Takumi was unbelievably shocking to me. This was a replacement match after SYURI couldn't make a scheduled appearance against MAYU. Aroha only stepped in at the 11th hour. This could have easily just been a hardly fought bomb fest to make MAYU look good. But instead, MAYU got treated like a ragdoll. Offense was unbelievably slanted towards Takumi. Any offense MAYU got in spelt desperate and spontaneous. There's a roll-up in this match where my heart was physically in my mouth. But for her part, Aroha felt like a beast. Her repertoire of strikes and powerbombs made her feel like an ace killer. I'm sad that the Marvelous vs Stardom stuff was little more than 3 matches, but really, this match was all we needed. Risa Hoshiki, post 5-star Grand Prix, was an absolute psychopath. Her first singles losses of her second career came in that tournament, and it lit a fire under her as she became more and more brutal as she defeated the women who defeated her there. By the time she faced super rookie Utami Hayashishita, she had fully morphed from happy to hang out with her friends Arisa to a psychopath who will murder you. The sight of blood definitely made this stand out. It's a rare sight in Stardom and helped Utami to be incredibly sympathetic. And that's rare for her. It's not really the kind of wrestler she is. She's one of those wrestlers who got so good so early that she comes off as a bit cold and detached. Almost like a Sonata, only not quite as boring. But it's impossible not to feel sorry for someone when their opponent holds their bloody head to the hard cam and smiles. She sold the nutty offense from Arisa perfectly whilst making her combat spots feel earned.
The moment she caught Arisa from a springboard into a German suplex made me jump out my chair on the first time of watching. Arisa would punish Utami for this. She didn't stay down, which is insulting to her, and her stupidity will not go unchecked. At the end of this match, Arisa hit a knee strike that would have easily gotten over 3 count, but she didn't take it. She dragged the lifeless husk of Utami to her feet, looking down the camera the whole time, and hit her with a Brazilian kick. It was the most metal fucking thing I've seen all year. Oh my god. That image hasn't left me over a year and a half later. It's just an incredible image to cap off a really emotional, rough match. Opinion is divided on this match, but I've never stopped adoring it, and I love it even more with every rewatch. I've went on a fucking ride with this match, okay? I have thought everything under the sun about this match, and it's special. It's just special, and expecting me to be critical about this match is insane and stupid, and why would you ask me to do that? Full transparency, I have not bothered scripting something for this match because I can't articulate my thoughts. I will never be able to articulate my thoughts. They stared at each other for 30 minutes. The fucking madmen stared at each other for 30 minutes. I remember watching this the first time. It was 3 months later. I somehow managed to avoid the fact that that happened. And I felt so slighted because I'd seen so many people say this was match of the year. Go watch it, it's match of the year. I was expecting a bomb show. I was not expecting staring at each other for 30 minutes. What the fuck? Why would you do that? You feel something though. When Vegeta hits that takedown and they start doing the tour of Korakuen Hall, and he drinks hand sanitizer and spits it and goes mouth, and then nothing goes right, the lift doesn't work, but you feel every moment of this match is truly transcendent, and there's never a moment where you're like, well, this is fake. No, you buy in, and you buy in hard, and I don't know why, and I can't. This match breaks me. This match is an hour long. I've watched it 4 times. The first time, where I was honest to God angry, I didn't know how to take it. This was not something I'm accustomed to. The second time, I started to get it. I didn't think it was for me, but I got why people loved it. Then watched it after the Forest Silver video, and you know, I fully got it then. I got the context of why it's so special, and with that context going in, I completely understood. And then I watched it again for this video, and it broke me all over again. I've been on a ride with this match, as I said. I can never articulate my thoughts on this match, but it's truly special, truly of its time. It's the most 2020 match you could have. I'm glad I get this match now. I honestly feel a more complete fan through getting why this match is good. I don't even get why this match is good. It just works. It allowed me to understand how wrestling works. This is what I'm like unscripted, by the way. How incoherent was that? On to number 1. Number 1 scripted. Let's go on to number 1. If there was a connecting thread for my top 3 matches of 2020, it's the fact that I don't think about how much I like them. I just like them. Tetsuya Naito was the main character of New Japan almost from the moment I started watching in Wrestle Kingdom 9. While this match obviously works on a technical level in the sense of the 2 men are really good wrestlers who have pretty good chemistry, that's not why I like this match. I adore this match because it felt like the season finale of New Japan Pro Wrestling. They dragged out the final season a bit, don't get me wrong, this came about 2 years too late, but it didn't matter, man. I was so happy when Naito won. When Naito went to the top to go for a Stardust press, the move that cost him the match 2 years prior, my heart was in my mouth. I didn't know how to handle myself. I was so scared he was going to throw it away again. And the joy. Oh my god, the joy when he hit the Stardust press. Unbelievable. Unmatched throughout the whole year. This isn't to say that Okada didn't play his role here very well, because he did. He knew what he was that night. He knew he was the obstacle. He didn't try to come off as an ace figure you should root for. He positioned himself as the final boss for Tetsuya Naito. It was perfect. New Japan's year was bad after this. The New Beginning tour was really good, but then they came back and all their cracks started to show. Kind of wish they didn't come back after this. To use the TV show analogy, it's like when a show reaches its natural conclusion but keeps going anyway. How the rest of New Japan's year went doesn't matter though. This match is special to me and a lot of people, and I'm really happy I got to see it. Matches like this, moments like this is why I watch wrestling. There's no better reason to make this number one for me. Okay, Jesus. Okay, this video's over. I've been recording it and writing it for so long now, and it's finally over. Thank Christ. Thank you so much for watching if you've made it this far, almost 50 minutes. Christ, this is going to be by far my longest video. I got to 250 and then 300 subscribers in the time of making this, and yeah, that's weird. Hello everyone. If you want to see more of me, you can find me in the description on Twitter at ChrisLovesPuro. Also, I was on a podcast with Forrest Over and Joseph Montecillo where we did a draft of the best years in wrestling. It was really fun. They're the two guys who inspired me to get into this, so the fact that they invited me onto something like that is madness to me. Thanks for having me on. I'll leave that in the description as well. But otherwise, I won't keep you any longer. You've sat through 50 minutes of my stupid fucking bullshit. This is essentially an ego trip, isn't it? There's no excuse for this. I'll see you next time, guys. Goodbye.